Well, good evening to everyone. Thank you very much for joining me tonight on another one of our live chats that we have been programming for today. Thank you for joining me this evening. I know it's late in the evening at 8 o'clock, but hopefully you'll bear with me for the next 1 hour as we go through some of the highlights of the recent budget for 2022 that was passed by the Parliament a few days ago. Well, as you know, the government has introduced a almost over 22 billion kina budget for year 2022, which is quite a historically a very large size budget appropriation, which has never had been done before in our country. Whilst at the same time they've stated that our GDP will grow by at least 5.4% in 2022 to over 101 billion kina. So that's the size of our economy that this government thinks that it will grow by end of 2022. There are some issues that I've recently debated on the floor of Parliament, and I think our citizens and many of the people who are interested in the workings of the economy are fairly familiar with some of those discussions, and I'll try and summarize them tonight. I won't bore you with the details, but main focus is that, as the Shadow Treasurer, the Honourable Joseph Lelang stated in his reply to the budget, I think that we have some concerns about the budget itself, because some of the mismatching in revenues and expenditure are of great concern to the country and country's economic stability. Why we say this is that for the first time, our government is predicting close to $16.2 billion dollars in new revenue, kina in new revenue, whilst at the same time they expect the grants that have been given in dollars by foreign countries equivalent of 1.8 billion kina. So together, those total grants and expenditures, they think that it will exceed 18 billion kina in total revenue and grants for the year 2022. Again, this is quite historical, meaning that it is quite a large amount of revenue estimates for the country. This has never been done before, and we are concerned that this will be a bit hard to achieve by the government. Why I say that is that what the Treasurer stated in this speech to Parliament, all he stated was that he will raise the revenue by making sure that it collects more tax from our citizens, our people who are working, our people who are paying for goods and services, and of course corporate taxes from companies that are paying tax and they have been profitable. But we see some very massive concerns about that. Right now, over the last 2.5 years, our economy has been struggling. As the economy struggles, there are more and more people out of jobs. As more and more people are out of jobs, they are not paying tax because they have no income and they are not getting paid in wages. That's number one. Number two, as more and more people get unemployed, and that is going on, and they have been put to unemployment by companies and institutions that are employing them. They are cutting down on costs. That is because their businesses or their organizations are not doing well. So when they are cutting down on costs and they are reprioritizing their business, you would expect in that environment the profits that these companies are making will also go down. When the profits go down, that means less corporate tax paid to government. So we have a scenario where government is not collecting enough tax in wages and salaries and wages tax. There is not enough taxes being collected in company tax. And when people don't have the money to spend, they cannot spend and buy goods and services in stores and all the other things that we pay GST on. When we cannot pay GST and buy more goods, that means GST goes down. So when the economy is struggling and the government says that they will collect more in those taxes, I think there is a need for serious concern. And that's what we are saying. And last year in this year, 2021, they are expecting to collect about 13.6 billion kina. And that is at the back of in 2020, they only collected 12 billion kina. So when you have those kind of numbers in 2020 and 2021, all of a sudden you have a jump almost 3 or 4 billion kina in 2022 is very serious, and it's a huge number. And just because it's 12 or 13 to almost 18 billion kina doesn't mean that it's a small jump. In terms of the billions of kina that we are going to collect, that is a big jump. And I think as we have highlighted in Parliament, that there is a serious concern there, that government is not realistic enough to say that we will not collect that much money in 2022, so let us estimate a lower number, and if we collect more, that's even better. But let us be realistic about our level of tax that are due to the nation. The second issue is that there's been a lot of debates going on in the business community and in public about the super taxes that have been targeted to two industries. That is the banking industry and of course the telecommunication industries. And this was basically targeted to BSP and of course Digicel. Why we are concerned about this is why target only two companies. It's obvious that the government did not give much thinking around it, and as a result, they've just introduced this thinking that we will get additional revenue, probably another 200 or 300 million kina from these industries because they are making massive profits. Fine, if they are making massive profits, they also pay massive corporate taxes already, which is right now at about 30% of the profits that they are making. But if there's enough data and evidence from any research that they have done saying that all the other industries, including banking and telecommunication, when you look at the airline industry, or when you look at the cigarettes and alcohol industry, or when you look at forestry industry, or when you look at fisheries, where there are very dominant players, that is almost become a monopoly. And if there's a need to try and get the government to try and make sure that these areas become more competitive and trying to promote the interest of the smaller players to be a bit more active, and the competition will drive prices down, then this is supposed to be aimed in the right direction. But just targeting two particular industries without any data to back their claim that this is necessary, I think it is unnecessary and creates the anxiety and takes focus away from the other challenges that we have in the country. And of course, the government has passed the legislation in the floor of Parliament, and that legislation, although the Prime Minister stated that the implementation will be in June, July next year, the fact of the matter is the law is passed and it comes into effect on 1st of January 2022. So whether they collect the money in first week of January or last week of December, it does not matter. What the Prime Minister stated is just misleading, and it's not true. The law is there, it can be implemented at any time. And our concern is generally this. These particular charges that they are charging these two companies, first thing these two companies will do is make sure that they work out the fees, how many customers they have across the country. They will divide those fees by the customers, and they increase the price of banking services or price of telecommunication. So eventually it means that you and I will end up paying more for these services. So all the grassroots and all the workers and everybody else will be paying for this. And that's where the issue of concern is coming through. And we hear the concerns of the major shareholders, particularly the workers of our country who have taken a risk, invested in this. They need certainty, and the government's responsibility is to give certainty. So in terms of revenue, they could have at least find another way of trying to improve their revenue collections than just wake up one morning and thinking that the easiest way to make money is to target these two companies. So I'm hoping that the next parliament or the following the elections, we can be able to bring some sense back into this and repeal that act, that legislation that has passed for introduction of these levies, and then reverse it so that people are, but right now it is there. Don't think that the Prime Minister just making a statement on the floor. That is not law. His statement is not law. The law has been already passed by Parliament, so just bear that in mind. The second issue that we are, and I'm particularly concerned, is about the level of expenditure. 22 billion kina in total for the government's expenditure estimates for 2022. 22 billion kina. Out of that, 14 billion kina is going, roughly 14 billion kina is going to fund the operation of government. And that is the government departments, the provinces, the employees, all this. 14 billion kina is by far the highest we have ever increased in the entire, annually for the entire years of our independence as an independent nation. This is a huge increase. As I was saying on the floor of Parliament, anywhere, I think the increase is about 9 or 10% in just one given year. There's no justification for that increase. There is no new massive number of people that are new employees going into the public service. There is no new additional services that they are. You know, our health systems are still the same. Our education system is still the same. Our law and order challenges are still there. So there is no justification on trying to increase these salaries and this expenditure on these items when the level of service going to the public is still the same. The challenges of not living up to the delivery expectations of our people is still the same, and government should not be increasing expenditure there. So increasing it to that level is even more than our total revenue for the country. When you have a total revenue of the country in 2018 at about 14 billion and 2019 at about 13, 2020 at about 12 billion, and then now you see your only public service operational cost recurrent budget increase up to 14 billion kina in 1 year. This is unacceptable, and I think Papua New Guineans as a country, we should be debating more. Why is government allowing this massive blowout to take place? And I've also said that even in the past governments, including ours, we've had a hard time, but we try to maintain the levels to the same levels as the previous years so that they are not blowing out of proportion like they have done in 2020 as we are expecting. I know that there may be arguments that, you know, it's an election year and there's COVID, but COVID, you know, now as you can see around the world, many countries are living with COVID and their economies are doing well. Many countries around the world are having elections and their economies are still doing well. So we just cannot keep on giving excuses after excuses. We need to take it under control, bite the bullet and make the tough decisions that we have to make, and then get the economy and make some sense as to how people can continue to ensure that this has been delivered to the expectations of the people. What we have seen today is that many of our big projects and foreign direct investment in the country is almost down to zero. I think it is zero. There has been no new foreign direct investment in the country in the last 3 years. All the big projects that we've been talking about, and even today they introduced a bill to try and move the Pinyang gas project forward. which is welcomed. But it's a little bit too late. And many of these projects will now wait until after the elections. Nobody's going to come and invest over the next 7 or 8 months. From January to August, they'll wait and see what sort of government takes shape. And when they have confidence back in Papua New Guinea, then you will see these investments starting to slowly come back. We have lost the trust of many of the investors around the world, because we keep on changing decisions, changing the rules, and when we don't like it, we go to Parliament and make rules to suit ourselves. Many investors don't like that. They need stability, they need predictability, and that's something that they expect of any government. They are investing billions and billions of kina, and I think it's important that we continue to do that. We give them the confidence and the certainty and the stability that they expect, because why I say that foreign direct investment is needed in our country is because it creates jobs that the government cannot provide for you and I. All our citizens, today's basic requirement is to earn an income, earn some income such as salary and wages, so that they can provide for their families, buy food and keep food on the table and feed our families. No government is able, even today's government cannot provide for everyone. That is why we need investors to come in there, create opportunities for our small businesses, create opportunities for our people to take jobs in those. And when those companies do well, they pay tax. We collect tax as a country, and then we are able to fund these massive expenditure levels that we have now set in 2022. But funding of that will be difficult, because I don't believe there will be the revenue coming in. One area that I suggested on the floor of Parliament to government was that they should relook at some of the government statutory bodies that we have created. And I admitted that we have made some mistakes along the way, trying to think that these statutory bodies would create an asset for the nation. We set them up separately so that politics and everything else should not interfere with it. But instead, these institutions are not functioning well. They are in fact creating little empires for individuals and politicians, and for them to go in there and misuse, and the public and the country is not benefiting. So as a government, they should be able to now try and consolidate that income that these people are getting. And many of the income, like fisheries and forestries and the oil and gas money and the mineral monies that are coming in, are country's monies, our people's money. So why should it not go into the consolidated revenue? The one account of people where we can manage it, na scale him, na give him lawless institution, na talk, you work and work below you tassel, not gonna look at the money. Work and work below you. Money must go to one main account for country, so everybody is keeping an eye on it. We all know where it's going and coming and going. That's why budgets are important, because we'll be able to scrutinize it. You know, one thing that was very disappointing with the budget was, I think this is the second or third time that the government has not put all the documents onto the floor. Only go and put him half and some important document on the table in the floor of Parliament. And my fear is that somebody can challenge that now. You know, when you don't have the entire documentation to pass a budget, is that budget legal or not? Mr. I was a lawyer man or someone man can scaling, but in my humble opinion as a legislator and member of Parliament, when you do not table the correct document on the floor of Parliament and it's not certified properly, that legislation is now questionable. It cannot be implemented. So at the same time, the budget is a law in itself that government has been given by law to now spend and raise money for the country. And if that law and some of the papers are missing, in my humble opinion, I think that is quite questionable. And I think we can be, someone can challenge it, and the courts can make a determination on it. But in my layman's view, I think there is a serious concern. The third issue that I want to touch based on the budget is that when 2019, when some of my colleagues on the floor of Parliament jumping up and down, wanted a change of government, and during the 12 months after that, there was votes of no confidence going on, and I did realize that people wanted a change. I resigned. I gave them an opportunity to choose a government, and now the government that we have, PNC and our party was also a party to that. We said, okay, if people want a change, we'll give it to them. We never put any conditions to the current government on our votes that we were given. We had a massive control of close to 48 votes that we gave to them. But we did not put any terms and said these are the conditions that we give you support for. We wanted the change to take place. Now that has taken place, but the delivery of that, and when the changes took place and the many people in the country were concerned about, and their number one concern at that time was the level of loans that the country was taking. And I had other concerns that they raised. And at that time, I think our estimates were about 28 billion or something. There are numbers that they recalculated, put it slightly up a bit, but I think 28 billion was the sort of Papua New Guinea thought that this was a massive, massive loan, and that was unacceptable to pass that responsibility on to the future generation. So we accepted it, we moved on. Now today we will pass over 22 budget we've just passed, gives us an opportunity to build that loan possibly up to 52 billion kina at the end of year 2022. 52 billion. We have almost doubled the size of the loans in the country in the last 3 years. And yet all the commentators don't want to talk about it. Think that by it'll go away. It won't go away. Today we are borrowing money, very little foreign loans, very little foreign loans. We are part of that 52 billion kina. Most of it is money that we are borrowing from our own central bank. Our own central bank today. We are borrowing at almost 9% per annum, every single year from the central bank. And some of them are very short-term loans, 12 months treasury bills and so forth, which we have to continuously refinance it every year. Now this is putting stress on the relationship between the government and the central bank, because government's demanding money all the time and central bank is saying, try and live within your means. So today, of course, they changed the Central Bank Act. Government has, in its wisdom, decided to change it. And they've removed some of the governor's powers, including him being chairman of the central bank. That is only to bring in more politically aligned people into central bank, and this is dangerous. Papua New Guineans need to know that this is very dangerous. We are now interfering in an independent organization like the central bank. Many of the things around us collapsed and things, but some of these institutions of governments we must protect. They may not serve the political masters, but they are serving the country and the people. So when our government is getting our loans up to 52 billion kina at the end of year 2022, just imagine if we are paying 1 billion kina every year loan repayment, that means it will take us another 50 years to do so. So while we are using that money now today, we are not building anything. Yesterday in Parliament, the Minister for Works was saying how many kilometers of road that he has sealed over the last 2.5 years or so. But those are not new projects. These are projects that has been in place for the last 8 years and started in the last 8 years before. So those loans were already accounted for within the 28 or so million kina that we have drawn down from ADB and the Exim Bank and the World Bank, and some of the loans that now they're getting from the Australian government. So much of it is now, the borrowings today is not going to build infrastructure. That's what I'm trying to say. It is going to pay bills for running the government and the programs that they say they're having. And it certainly is not capital investment. And the Treasurer's statement in the budget paper saying that they're spending 18 billion kina in capital investment. And Gaman statement straight. We have an audacity to try and blindfold our people at the moment by putting these numbers out there. But where they spend that 18 billion kina, nobody can say. All they have done is borrowed money to pay bills and continue to pay public services and all the other things that they are misusing the funds for. So when they are parking 2 or 3 billion kina and planning is supposed to be an advisory and planning for the future, putting vision and medium-term development strategy. It is not an implementing agency. It's not like health or works or education. That's where the money should go, because they know how to manage it and spend on the priorities that will deliver the services to our people on the front line. So I think our government is just simply talk sweet and putting all these nice slogans out there. It's like, during the colonial times when some of our people were blindfolded and said there'll be shiploads of cargo coming in through to PNG, so and they didn't go to the gardens. That's what's happening today. Our government is making these grandiose statements saying that we will do this and that tomorrow, but I can tell you by next year it'll be the same. So we need to rein in our thinking and our observation of how the country has been going. We can't spend more than what we have. We have to learn to live within our means. When Ian Lingstaki claims himself to be a big businessman, we know his business is in real estate and pokies, in which it's not quite a difficult business for anyone to be involved in. But when he says that he knows how to make money and things, but the way he's spending is not about how a businessman does make those decisions. Every business knows in this country, you have to live within your means and make sure that you don't spend more than what you earn or what you have. And that's precisely what we are doing in our country. We are spending more than what we can make in our country at the moment. So that talk about getting GDP to up 100 billion kina, something for us to beat our chest and be proud of, but we are not there yet. The record doesn't say that we are capable of doing that yet. We will get there sometimes, but we have to be realistic about how we approach. So what I want to conclude by saying this on the budget, and then I'll take on some questions. But we live in a country where it's very challenging. And for many of our citizens, especially those who are today out of work, they don't have much to eat, finding it hard to feed their families, finding it hard to pay for school fees, and so forth. Life is real. Problems on a day-to-day basis are real. We need to move beyond all this slogan, all the things that we just put out there so that it excites us. These slogans, and we have to move beyond the sweet talk and this cargo cart mentality that someone else will do it for us. Life is real, and that we need to know that it's hard. We need to work hard to get to where we want to go. And government must provide an avenue for Papua New Guineans to get an opportunity to work hard. And we need to talk more about jobs and creating jobs, so people can earn an income. Talk about SMEs and spend more money into SMEs rather than giving money to ministers and departmental heads. We have proven over the last 40 years that we cannot do the management of those funds. They must use the banks and all the experts who are out there to make sure that these funds that we target for SME or for agriculture goes there. You look at the saga of the agriculture funds that went to agriculture department. Again, these are millions of kina that can make difference in individual lives and individual businesses. Instead, it's been wasted, and the saga continues. So all I want to say is that we need to broaden our economic base. If we are borrowing money, let us borrow money to build infrastructure so we can generate income out of those infrastructures. Roads, bridges, airports, and also we borrow money to build infrastructure so we can deliver services, health, education, and so forth. Not for wastage and politically motivated projects. And you will see that in our country, there will be now a mad rush to open roads and groundbreaking ceremonies and It's just basically another superficial way of trying to divert government funds in the areas which are going to be misused anyway. This is what is happening in the country. And not people like Ombudsman Commission. This is the time when they need to step up. They need to step up and don't isolate yourself. They need to make sure that they bring in interventions into the system where there are misspending going on, where their projects will not eventuate, but the monies will be spent, and that is what is going to happen over the next 4 months. The writs are going to be issued in April, and I want all thinking Papua New Guineans, let's keep an eye out on this kind of things that are destroying our country. Unnecessary spending, unnecessary projects that are not being thought out properly. There's no design, no costing. And to summarize this budget conversation, let me say, we need to broaden our economic base. We need to make sure that we encourage foreign investment, foreign direct investment into our country. We need to encourage investment in infrastructure. We need to encourage investment in small to medium enterprises. We need to encourage investment in agriculture. We need to make sure that we provide the enablers like roads and bridges and transport. And most of all, also, we need to encourage public housing programs in the country. Housing is a necessity for Papua New Guineans. We have had a success when government intervened with BSP and put 400 million kina when we were in government, 40-year loan at 4%. Many of the houses that you see around the cities and many Papua New Guineans are participating in that. There's a huge take-up on these loans. 40 years at 4% fixed interest rate is very, very attractive loan to take. Give priority to your family. That's all I'm encouraging you. Forget about buying new cars and forget about going and be doing mockers and compensation and all these things. Buy a house for your family first. And housing can be a big industry for any economy. If every one of us in Papua New Guinea go out there, every family builds a house for themselves, the housing industry in Papua New Guinea can sustain the economy of our country. And this is the sort of things that government must invest in and make sure that we continue to encourage our people. Invest in things that matter. Not going to waste money, nothing. You may work tintin lo kake today taso. Something to look at in family and I look at in community. And finally, I almost forgot in Parliament as well, or I forgot in Parliament. Our Treasurer talked about 13-year plan. There is no such thing as 13-year plan. He's just put a budget estimates for the next 13 years. That's all he has done. He said, these figures will be like this over the next 13 years. He has done no costing, he has got no policies, he's got no program, just a diriman that's all. Diriman emptying also, our economy will be this, we will have zero loans by 13 years time. I tell you what, I don't know, I don't consider myself as a fool, but I cannot be blindfolded by this kind of rubbish talk. Papua New Guineans need to understand, it's not going to be easy. The mess that the government has done over the last 2.5 years or 3 years to try and get our economy back on track on a level of growth and confidence and stability and creating jobs for our people is not going to be easy. It's going to be, the first 5 years is going to be tough. Any government that comes in during that time will see that it is not going to be easy. So we need to give incentives to our businesses and our people. We need to cut taxes for people in salaries and wages. We need to cut taxes in corporate tax because they will spend more. When you have a good corporate tax environment, people will come in and invest. I will tell you an example. Just read about the US economy when Donald Trump cut the tax from, I think it was 25 or 30% down to 17% when he entered the presidency. You see the confidence that the business community built as a result of that, and the investments that it attracted into US, and the number of jobs that it created. So we need to think outside the box and try and make sure that we bring back jobs and bring back business confidence back into our place. So now I will start, I think it's time, we've got another 30 more minutes to go. So we can start with the questions that we have gotten. First of all, let me thank you for the patience. I know many of you, some of you may not agree with my assessment, but that's my view. I'm quite happy to listen to any constructive views that we can put together. And we all have to, as I said yesterday, the other day on the floor of Parliament, there's black country, you know, black government, that's all, or opposition. It's our country. We need to work together. We will have differences of opinion, and that's healthy in a society. But we must get the best of those opinions to move our country forward, and this is what I'm promoting. We've got a good question here from Ali, and thank you, Ali. He's saying, how will the banking levy affect our super? Well, the banking levy means that when they pay more levies to the government, there'll be less dividend paid out to the shareholders. When Nest Fund and Number One Super and Defence Force Retirement Fund get less dividends, and then the less distribution to your super. So literally it means that you will get less money. While on super, my view is that I am told, and I think this is illegal, and people need to relook at it, and our experts need to relook at it. But I hear that some of the retirement fund payments that have been made now, and you know, this is quite alarming in the sense, because today I hear that close to the last 3 years, Papua New Guineans are withdrawing more of their retirement savings in these 3 or 4 super funds, exceeding almost $1 billion kina. And meanwhile, some people are got rushing money time and money finish time. How are you going to look after your family? This is supposed to look after you in your retirement. So what we need to do is government needs to know to set up a pension system that people who are getting old, over 65 and beyond, and these people have contributed meaningfully to the country. They have contributed meaningfully to their families and their communities. Look at them, family law. They need to be looked after towards the end of their life and in light of their contribution. So we need to relook at the superannuation structure to focus on the pension system that is going to look after this group of people. We all are getting old, so every one of us must prepare to be looked after well in our retirement. And the issue that I was saying earlier was that I hear that this particular superannuation is being taxed. I think that is wrong. If there's a provision that's saying that taxes should be charged on their withdrawals, then that must be amended immediately, and they should be paying zero tax for the withdrawals that they are getting. There's savings on Wakimia, it has been taxed already from their salary. That should not be taxed again, and that's my view on super. Jackson says that will we have a surplus budget by 2027 as ILS claims? Well, Starkey has made some astounding projections and claims over the last 3 years when he presented the budget. Now, those claims include making sure that our budget deficits were reduced. But if the record of the last 3 years is any indication, I can guarantee you that it won't happen. I can virtually guarantee you that. Last 3 years, they all have been big, solid deficit budgets, and together they have borrowed almost 24 billion kina to fund that deficit. 24 billion, almost on an average of 8 or 9 billion kina a year. So by 2022, they would have said, let me correct it, by 2022, end of it, they would have borrowed 24 billion kina. So that means in 4 years, you're looking at least 6 or 7 billion kina in terms of borrowings to fund that deficit. So when you have that kind of massive record, to try and get a budget balance in 2027 would be near impossibility. Fairview says that are they paying off your past debts, sir? Yes, of course. Governments regularly pay debts off, and I see no reason why they shouldn't be paying government debts over time. But there has been a misconception about saying that government is paying off UBS loans. Government has never borrowed in the government books the UBS loan. Those loans were repaid by the shares in oil sales, never from government revenues. So the misleading statements that are out there, it cannot be documented, cannot be supported by any evidence whatsoever. But the interest payments that we are paying to central bank, every government borrows to fund, but they don't borrow at such alarming sums like we are doing today. Since independence, every government has been borrowing to it. It is on average about 1 or 2%. But now you're looking at 6%, which is quite an alarming number. So I suggest that we review that. And many of them talk about the debts that we have accumulated when we were in government for almost 8 years. Most of the debt that we've got, you can find in every infrastructure that we have built in the country, whether it be a hospital, whether it be schools, whether it be a road, whether it be bridges, whether it be wharf, whether it be telecommunication, all this infrastructure that our country needs to function as a country and provide service to our people, we have invested in there. The records speak for themselves, so I urge you to visit the Treasury website. If not, I urge Treasury to put it up so people can know what we have borrowed the money for. But apart from the temporary facility that governments have at the central bank, government has never forced, when we were there, to central bank to print money for us. Has never ever done that in 8 years. We have never borrowed money in IMF. When they borrow money in IMF is when they are under stress. When Somalia government was there, they have never borrowed from IMF, and when our government was there for almost 8 years, we've never borrowed from IMF. Today, you almost have a IMF management structure. They're normally called staff structural adjustment programs in the past. I don't know what they call now, but that is precisely what's happening here. IMF is actively involved in managing our treasury and our treasurer and giving advice on how the economy should be traveling. And I have greatest respect for some of the people who work for IMF, and I've got great respect for the institution, but their record is not a proud one, and Papua New Guinea knows that too. But IMF is the last option that is available to a government that cannot borrow anymore anywhere else. So in terms of debt, that is a situation that we are in, and it will be interesting to see how we will repay the 52 billion kina that we will end up owing around the world and in Papua New Guinea for government debt by year-end 2022. Will they privatize the central bank? I don't think the legislation will allow for privatization. The central banks are regulators of the managers of monetary policy of any government, and they will continue to function. But all they are doing is watering down its independence, and that is not something that the country should accept. We must, even if they disagree with us, we must allow them to function independently. Sometimes you need a referee to tell you that you are wrong. Even though we've got teams who are in a rugby league match, 13 and 26 men on each side there, but one referee controls it. You must allow the central bank to referee. Sometimes when the government gets off the rail, tell them this is wrong, you should prioritize your government's budget in this manner, and then you will know that they are close observers of our economy, and they should be able to tell you what is the right thing to do. Colin says that basic goods and services have increased drastically. It's hard to live. What can I do? I agree with you totally that the inflation is skyrocketing all the time. When there is a government that is not sensitive to these things, especially inflation, and how the inflationary conditions affect the pricing of basic items like rice and tin fish and flour and sugar. The government is, I think, has lost control of that. There is no more price control in the country. When you need to manage a family budget, I know it's a struggle for everybody. It doesn't matter what level of income you have, but we all are Papua New Guineans. We've got extended family and social responsibilities, house line and community. So it's not easy, and I understand that. What we need to do now is, as government is now entering into a situation where it's taxing the people more, it needs to increase the salary level for people so that they have a bit more income, and by doing that, they can either reduce the tax for the income levels that are lower than 20 or 30,000 kina a year, so that there is more money in your pocket so you can look after your family. The way that the government can balance that is that when it puts more money in your pocket, you will spend more. So when you go to the shop, government will collect GST on the other side. We need to make sure that some of the shop owners who are now trading on cash only, we need to tighten that up and make sure that they are using bank cards and not cash, where some of them are not being banked and they avoid paying tax and so forth. So these are things that they need to streamline and tighten so that we can collect more money for the revenue for the government, and then more reliefs are given to families and people who are struggling to survive out there. How do we use our large amounts of land for agriculture to export to Asia? Agriculture has been a big issue for us in the country for many, many years. But let me say this. Firstly, we need to try and find a way to release the customary ownership of the land. While respecting the customary ownership of land, we must try and tie in a way that large-scale agricultural activities can take place on those land without our people losing their land. Now, I know many of the landowners around the country are selling their land, and once you sell your land, you will lose control of that land, and your future generations, including your family members, will lose control of and ownership of that land. Please, I humbly discourage you to do that. Try and find a way to lease that land to a developer or a big agriculture, be a partner with them, but make sure that you have control over your land for your future generation. Last thing we want to do in our country is displace our people from their land. And agriculture requires land, and large agricultural projects will require massive land, which will produce more for us to export to Asia. And building massive infrastructures like the airport, and where they can have direct flight for cargo planes that will carry refrigerated goods and perishable goods in a safe environment. There is a big infrastructure that needs to be built, and in places like when we were in government, we looked at places like Kup in Karawage and Jiwaka area to build a massive airport there, like they do in Toowoomba in Australia, where flights now fly directly from Toowoomba to the Asian cities, providing on a daily basis tons and tons of agricultural produce. We can do the same in PNG. We are in fact much closer to Asia than Australia is. So it's been done. We can do it, but we need a government to take this agenda seriously and develop that Kup airport that is been long outstanding. That was a commitment made by our government to the people of Simbu province. We need to get it off the ground, and you will see a massive change. The second thing is the supply chain, from the shipping down to cities like Port Moresby from the islands, and the keeping of the freshness of the produce. Those are things that need to be done, and we've got a few operators and businesses operating out of Hagen and Goroka which are doing that, and under difficult circumstances, but government needs to get in there and help them, give them support, give them tax reliefs, give them incentive, so that they can do more and our people can benefit more. That's the way we should be managing our land as far as I can see. Jackson says 52 billion Kina in loans, really? Well, I wish I was wrong, you know, but all you have to do is read the budget papers and you can make an assessment for yourself. Tony says, I want to know why 74 million Kina for agriculture boards when they are ineffective, and what is your view now? Again, as I said, in agriculture, we've done it with housing with BSP, and we were at a discussion stage with ANZ, where government parked all its money. Rather than giving monies to Wantoks and friends and political cronies and so forth, if we put in the funding that we are saying for agriculture or SME, and then we put the conditions in which the bank can lend to our people. So, only behind him Toktok boleh imitaso. And that includes the term of the loan, that includes the conditions of the loan and interest rates of the loan. That's the only way agriculture can move. People have access to funding from government rather than just giving money, nothing, a check, nothing. And, you know, all you have to do is come to my province in the Southern Islands and see some of the agricultural checks that have been distributed, and then go down and see whether really the agricultural development takes place or not. Certainly some of my provincial administration is well known for doing that. So there's very good examples of what not to do. Is there a way the public feedback can repeal the changes made to the central bank? Well, you know, as we have done with the super tax and the levy that they were putting, public needs to come out and protect. This is your bank. It's not Lloyd Bakani's bank or somebody who's working for the central bank. It is people's bank, and independence of that bank must be protected. We have had government interference in the SOEs, and many of them, the conditions in which they are in today is because of the government's inability to stay away from these institutions so they can function themselves. Bibla sa tromayan iko inside close to na over the something iko bagarap. Rebecca says, do you agree that infrastructure to be built should be accessible to disabled people? 100%. I certainly agree with you that we must make sure that, Rebecca, we must make sure that these are our people who need special attention. And whether we have got building that is happening in the city or roads that have been built around the country, walkways and pathways must take that into account. The designers and people who are designing all these things must make sure that we look after everybody who wants to have access to those services, and accessibility by our disabled people has to be priority. Even sometimes people think that it might not be used, but it is necessary. It must be a condition. You see many new buildings going around in Port Moresby and Lae and Hagen. Our building board people and the town city authorities must be reminded again and again that that's the way to go. We are running out of time, but I will. The questions keep on coming, so let me try and get through as much as I can. But listen, if we do cut it short during this session, let me thank you for putting up with me and listening to me for some of the ramblings that I've done tonight and the frustrations that I've expressed. But I'm certain I'm not the only one who's frustrated in the country. We are all together. So, but Terry is asking, why is the budget increasing every year even though we are in deficit? That's a very, very good question, Terry. It should not increase every year. We should be living within our means. And if we have a bad year in 1 year, we shouldn't be overestimating our revenue and increasing our expenditure. We should try and plow it back so that we can control this expenditure to an acceptable level and something that we can pay for it as a government. Skip is saying, what about the Pogora 3,000 workers? We need opposition to care more about us because government does not. Unfortunately, government makes the decisions on licenses and restart and the negotiations with the developer and so forth. We don't see an end into sight. I think the government has stated that they will reopen the mine in April next year. But as I've said in the floor of Parliament, our government has missed so many deadlines and so many timelines that they've set, and they've missed it. My gut feeling is that the developers have no trust in the commitments made by our government today. They will not open the mine until after the elections, and that would mean that we will continue to forego almost a billion kina in revenue to the state, which we had for many, many years, and it could have been more when the gold prices were high. Again, we've made some silly decisions because of our pride and ego, and as a result, we are now in this situation where we are. I hope our landowners and our provincial government in Enga can work together with the developers and try and bring some common sense into it, because government is now has really lost the plot, and it's entirely up to these stakeholders who are directly affected by the closure of the mine. Morea says, do you think loans to finance the deficit are good debt or bad debt in the business context? Well, the loans that are financing a deficit that is been wasted on consumption is a bad debt. So you are not generating any revenue out of that debt, and you still have to pay the cost of that debt. Every loan has a cost. So if you are generating money with that loan, revenue with that loan, you are able to service it. But if you are not doing that, then it means it's a bad loan, and in business, nobody borrows money if it's not going to make money to repay that loan. Nobody. French is saying that can the Prime Minister hold back the levy until July as he promised? As I said earlier, the law has been passed. Prime Minister has got no legal authority whatsoever, even though he's made a commitment on the floor of Parliament. The law comes into operation on 1st of January when it's passed by Parliament. And they can charge the levy in February, or they can charge it in March or April. If they do not repeal that levy, that law, and then reintroduce it in July, then you cannot charge it until July. But as it stands now, that is just a commitment from the Prime Minister, which I don't think he intends to keep. Timon thinks that many jobs can be done by Papua New Guineans instead of experts. Agree. And I give credit to some of the officers in our Labour and Migration Department going around checking work permits and visas and things. That needs to be done on a regular basis so that we can protect our jobs for our people. And at the same time, some of these businesses where our people need to do, they are becoming landlords. They should try and run the businesses. Don't give your business and your property and things to others to make a go of it. They work hard, they make money, and then we just on the side standing there as observers. So try and get into business yourself and train yourself to be disciplined, and make sure that we try and have a change in the way we conduct businesses in our country. Now Kila says, do you agree for greater provincial autonomy? Yes, I agree with that. I think the provinces need to be resourced more. What has been a problem since the introduction of provincial governments is that we've set up this structure of provinces and the government system, but Waigani is not funding them properly. So the idea about giving them greater autonomy and funding must be followed by funding. You can have all the powers in the world in the provinces, but if you don't have the resources and the funding and the capacity to carry out those functions, it is meaningless. Yes, but all in all, I agree with greater autonomy to the provinces. Kerry asks, how will the 52 billion kina loan be repaid, and how long it will take? It will take a few years. I would say probably another 30 or 40 years to do so. So that is my conservative estimate, but if we don't stop the bleeding now, it'll continue to bleed and it'll continue to grow. So Papua New Guineans need to tighten our belt, and we have to stop the bleeding that we are suffering today as a country through our economy. What's your view on the gold refinery? Well, there's been much debate about the gold refinery, and I agree with the government. In fact, the government's approved project came before our government before. We have taken note of that, and we have referred that back to the officials to do more work and negotiate with the prospective developers. This is a big industry. I think what government should have done is to put out an international invitation for bidders to come in, and it has to be done at a competitive level. It should not be given any special privileges. What we have now is in my view, I haven't really seen the details of the agreement because it's not been tabled. So I am just basically guessing from what I've seen in the past, and that is that we are asking all our operating mines like Octedi and possibly Pogra when it comes back online, and Lear and others, Semberi and so forth, to sell the gold to the refinery as first priority, and if they're not able to take, they can sell elsewhere. I think that will create some legal challenges, and these are things that need to be overcome. And the best thing is that they need to make sure that a government team is put together, official negotiating team is put together. It must clear all the hurdles that it's required before a project of such magnitude can be approved. Also, the interest of Papua New Guinea must be much higher than what they have started to take up, because gold bullions are almost like state assets, and gold refineries are normally run by state. I think in Western Australia it's 99% or 97 or 95%. I am told that it's owned by the West Australian government. So our government needs to relook at this and work it through with any prospective developer that is coming through. What is your views on Wafi Golpu? Well, Wafi Golpu, as many of you would recall, our government had a memorandum of understanding with them. We've agreed to the terms of the prospective development of that gold mine, and now I understand that it's parked, and it'll probably take probably another 3 or 4 years before it will see any light at the end of the tunnel. So it's a sad scenario. When the governor for Morobe and of course the Prime Minister, when they got into government, they assumed that this deal was not done properly, and they revisited that, only to come up with the same terms, almost the same terms, and the governor thinking that there should be a bit more equity. Of course, the law says that we can take up to 30% equity, but can we afford it? All we were going to do was to go and borrow more money to pay for the equity and wait 10 or 20 years to get any form of payment coming through. So I thought we'll reduce the equity participation, but increase royalty and increase the levy. Royalty and levy to be calculated on every export that has been shipped out, meaning that the landowners and the governments, provincial government and the government will get money on every export that's going out. So we are receiving money early rather than waiting 20, 30 years. Sometimes when we have equity, it depends on whether the mine is making profits or not. When it's not making profit, we get zero. But on every export, we are getting the value of the export value that is taking place. And one thing is that they cannot, if we put in the controls properly, they cannot cheat us, because the gold prices have been printed on a daily basis by New York Stock Exchange. So everybody who participates in the gold industry knows the price, and we can track these exports quite well. So I think that's a lost opportunity there in Wafi. When the new government comes in, I hope that they give it priority. I think our people in Morobe and our people in Bulolo area need a break, and they need revenue up front, and government needs to try and do its best to sit down with the people and quickly get a deal to be agreed upon so that the investors can start investing. Balam says, if the government does not pay the loans that we have borrowed, what will happen? We simply become a failed state, and certainly there are signs of it, as the government was not able to meet some of its obligations internationally. They went to the Paris Club, which is a club that exists at global, controlled by the 4 or 5 global superpowers, to regulate and give approval that we can reschedule our loans, so because we are not able to meet them. For the first time as a country, in the history of our country, we did that a few years back, and that is totally unacceptable. This government should not have gone to that means to try and readjust our loan. They just simply should have stopped borrowing. We are quite capable of living within our means. We are not a poor country. We are able to live within our means, and our government did us a huge disservice. I will take a few more questions and then we'll call it a night. It's been a long day. Imaus, I hope I'm pronouncing the name right. He said, are we on track to become the richest black Christian nation in the world? I think somebody else has beaten us to that already. I think it's one of the Caribbean countries. I think it's Jamaica, or not Jamaica, Barbados, I think, who has beaten us to that. They're very rich LNG producing country, but we are not on track, and we will. That kind of slogan and that kind of emotional slogan put out to our people and lifting up the expectations, thinking that this is possible, it's just not right. It's just simply telling our people lies. We will still be having this conversation. No one is going to disappear tomorrow. We are going to be around. We'll have this conversation in 4 or 5 years' time, and we will remind you that this kind of promises cannot be kept. And all you need to do is work hard to be a rich person. And that is possible. And a rich nation, that is possible. But without working and just on slogans, you can't get there. So, as I was saying earlier, I think Papua New Guineans have had enough of slogans and sweet talk. I think we should replace it with hard work, and then we will get somewhere. Once again, thank you very much. I know there are a lot more questions out there, but we will certainly be trying to respond to them, each and every one of you. But before I conclude, I want to wish you and each one of you, our communities and our citizens out there, a very, very Merry Christmas to you and your family and our communities. And please have a very safe, Happy New Year. Stay away from crowds and be COVID-free. So that we can survive for our families and our communities and our country. God bless you. Good night. Thank you very much.